Hey everybody, it's Thursday.
And thank goodness it's almost the weekend. Welcome to this week's edition of The Night Bite.
I'm Josh.
And I'm Emily. Thanks for joining us here this evening. I guess, are going to start with the fishing report like we always do, but I think we're here mostly just chatting and stuff this evening. We've done quite a bit of fishing recently, and so we're going to talk about some of that. And I guess, where do we start?
Oh, I don't know. Let's check the calendar here. I'm going to pull it up quick because I need to see where I'm at here.
Well, we just had Labor Day, and so
Yep.
that just passed. So most people had, I guess, an extra long weekend. And so I guess we'll start at the beginning of our weekend. And one of the things that we got to do is visit one of our favorite people, Brian Claremont. And so most people know him for walleye fishing, but there's so much else that he does. Bass fishing, sturgeon are coming up. And we did a little bit of talking about all that because I guess we always seem to visit him in the same fishing season, and there are so many different opportunities out there. So I think we're going to visit him coming up here for some of these other fishing situations. Smallies perhaps do love good bass trip, and like we said, that sturgeon, we did that. Feels like yesterday, but it was probably closer to 5 years ago now.
Might be 4.
And we caught some really great fish, and it was in some really crummy weather. And I wanted to say that we went out and we were only going to be there until lunch that day. But we did catch fish, and it was a really great time. And so it was really nice to reflect on all of that, but that is all stuff to come. And so while we were there, we did some poking around, looking for perch, looking for panfish, looking for all kinds of things. And we tried a few new fishing spots. I won't give away the secrets, right? But I would say that we did fairly well that day for navigating new water.
Yeah. So Brian Claremont, BAC Guide Service, like Emily said, is known for the walleyes and the bass. And we kind of brought him out of his comfort zone a little bit and just wanted to go poke around for some panfish. Because like Emily said, like we go over there for walleyes quite often in the spring, but we don't necessarily make it back during the summer portion of the months, and then we hit there in the fall for maybe a bass trip or something. And so it was fun to go out there and just fish for some panfish. And because you and I, we go through all spring and we're like, oh, look at that spot, I bet crappie sit there. Oh, look at that spot, I bet that's a bluegill spot. And so it was nice to actually check those spots a little bit. We did a little scouting for his guide, for his future guide trips. And yeah, it was a fun day.
And I guess the funny thing about that is some of the spots that we thought that there would be fish, there weren't. And some of the spots, I guess, that we thought that we were right, but either way, that was great to navigate some new water, and we figured out baits pretty easily. I think one of the things that we were up against is water temperatures, because maybe at this point fish are reacting more like fall and they're sensing that water temperature dropping. But I would say last weekend they were still just kind of reacting like it was a cold front. But that did not stop us for the rest of the weekend. And one of the things that we like to do on holidays is, well, I was going to say sort the boat ramps by no motor. I was feeling like this year, how did I do that in the past? Because I was struggling to do that. So I don't know what the situation was, but we found all kinds of other lakes, which was kind of funny, as I stumbled upon just onyx and I was poking around. Yeah. And the nice thing is Saturday and Sunday, both days, we tried brand new water
Haley.
Again. And so I would say we had some hits and some misses.
Yeah, I mean, you're always going to have that. You can go off of the best information that you can get. And even if the weather's not cooperating, or if you don't interpret the information right, it could be a hit or miss lake. So we did find a small lake. Man, I was losing confidence very quickly.
Okay, because let's say this. The lake that we picked out on Saturday had high potential for a lot of bass. And so I was kind of ready to catch a lot of bass, to be honest, and maybe some panfish. I don't know. I wasn't going out for a bass day. But then the funny thing is, and we'll get to this later, but Sunday I was expecting a panfish day and we got a bass day. And so the days ended up being opposite. And to be honest, that sounds great. That sounds like it should be no problem. But as an angler, it was honestly a little bit frustrating. And that is just because sometimes you go in mentally prepared. or excited, I guess, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I hope to catch this, I hope to catch that. And when it all doesn't work out, I don't know, it leaves you kind of questioning yourself and kind of frustrated and just, I don't know, you handled it just fine. You had a bunch of fun.
Well, here's the thing is that I bring this up a lot, and I enjoy fishing at its most basic, right? Like I like just looking at
I hate
electronics.
fishing.
No, but you know what I mean. We have this conversation all the time, and it's not
I'm
meant
so
to put
stupid.
you down or anyone that likes. Like
Catching.
I like to catch fish. Don't get me wrong, but I really enjoy days where I can spend the time putting puzzle pieces together. And I can use my electronics. I can go through my tackle box and actually use a lot of stuff that sometimes, like, I'll have the same jig head tied on for weeks because that's what's working. And so it's like, that's cool that it's working, but like, we know that's working. Is there other things that can be working? Can we find something else to fish? Like those, I like putting the puzzle pieces together. And so these two lakes were exactly that. They were two puzzles. We had never been on them before, vastly different from each other. One was like 20 acres, 15 acres. It was
20.
barely a lake, man. And then, but it was like 40 feet deep. And then the other one was like 400 acres, and it was 11 feet deep. And so totally opposite of each other. Still not a huge body of water, kind of large to fish the whole thing in the day, but we kind of got that done because it was so shallow that you could really narrow down a little bit where the fish were. Yeah, and it was just going through tackle boxes, like looking at, like, racking your brain in different techniques that you could use, and like reading the fish, like what are the fish doing on your on your 2D, on your side scan. If you have live scope, like we put the forward facing in towards the end of the day, and you just kind of see how fish were reacting to baits once you found kind of where they were hanging out. And that's the kind of stuff that I like. And so on Saturday, it was really crazy because I thought, like, we had some deep edges, deep water butting up to edges. There's trees over the top. There's like, it's stained water. The water's 70 degrees, and there's no fish to be found anywhere along the shoreline. It's 20 acres. You could walk it in an hour, let alone, take your trolling motor and cruise around. And so now it's like, okay, so now you got from 10 feet all the way out to 35 feet. Where are the fish? And so without knowing this body of water, you're out there. You don't know if there's mid-depth structure. You don't know if there's super deep structure. You don't know if there's any structure. So you're just like flying around blind, just like looking around.
Except for not flying around because it's too small.
Yeah. Trolling around.
Yeah.
So, we're going around, we're trying different things. Emily does kind of get onto a little bit of a color pattern. She kind of found a path, and we kind of started following that. And from there, we kind of just went back and forth on whether this lake happened to be like a bug lake or a minnow lake, or what the fish were primarily feeding on.
And I don't know if we figured that out. And I think
don't
part
think so.
of that was because it was just a day that was a tough bite. You
Yeah.
know? And I think to be able to
Well,
go
the whole
out,
weekend,
we did catch
honestly.
fish, right? I think, we'll visit again. But it was clear that it wasn't a great bite on
Right.
the lake. On our graphs, we could see that there was fish moving around and all that kind of stuff. And so one of the things, here's the best pattern I could say that worked, is I felt like every time I switched my bait, I would catch one fish. And I don't actually know if that's a pattern, and probably doesn't have anything to do with anything. Probably the amount of time I was patient and casting in far enough new spots, or I don't know what it meant, right? But it was one of those days where the pattern was that there was no pattern. And so, I think you maybe, well, I was going to say you figured out a thing or two, but that's not even true. We caught like one pretty good crappie, and then we all switched all the baits to that exact one, like it was like the fire bait. And to be honest, the launch was a little sketchy, so we wanted to pull the boat before it got dark. So we only had a certain amount of time left. And so, but that's what happens. That's what happens, right? Especially when you're trying new water, you don't want to push your luck. And I think that we learned a lot both days.
Yeah, and honestly, being a 20-acre lake, really excited to go out there and ice fish it. Honestly, it'll allow me to dissect it just a little bit more intimately, like just being able to like look and slow down while not really messing around with the fish. The especially in some of these lakes that are small and they're a little bit on the clear side. Boats can kind of push them around, and so being able to be on top of the ice, hopefully there's a little snow, then you're not pushing fish around as much. And just see what the lake is like. But I think there's some good potential in there. Do I think there's a whole bunch of numbers? Probably not. Is it like, oh, it's like the gem of the lakes? No, not really. It's just an interesting lake to me. It's close to the house. I'm looking forward to it. Oh, here we go.
One of the things that we talked about, that the fish were skittish about the boat. I think
Thanks,
that's a good point. And we actually talked about that a little bit on the water and this is a total guess on my part, right? But I was saying if the fish are so skittish about the boat and the shadow and all that, this might be one of those lakes to keep in mind that when you are out there ice fishing, that there's a good chance they're going to be skittish about the auger also.
Yep.
And so one of the things, is this might be a good spot to, especially as we're in fall, take note on where those fish are setting up, because if you can go out there one day, you can drill some holes in like your number one confidence spot, leave it alone for a minute, maybe go and drill some holes in your backup plan spot, right? On this lake we're talking, it's not too big. Some lakes you can't do that, right? But if you can then come back to that spot, that first number one spot after it's calmed down for a minute, that might be something that's necessary. I don't know if it's really skittish fish. Look at your face. You're like, I don't care. I'm going to throw baits right now.
No, I'm laughing because I'm thinking like, oh, everybody's writing down Emily's secret ice fishing tips.
Whatever, probably not. These are not secrets. That's the thing, is like you watch the patterns where fish are setting up now is where they'll be then. But if they're touchy fish, I don't know, maybe you do need a secret way to get to them. So I don't know.
Well, so speaking about touchy fish, we kind of left that situation, right? We, like you said, it got dark. We're like launching the boat at like a lateral 45-degree angle with the truck. It was kind of crazy, but we made it work. Anyway, so
wait, let's say this before you go on too far. I don't mean to steal your transition, but one of the things that I did learn, I guess, from now Friday fishing, Saturday fishing, even though we knew it wasn't a fabulous bite, right? But we were finding fish setting up on the deeper edges, right? If that was with structure, if that was with weeds, and ultimately fish were looking for forage. And so with this in my back pocket, I'm like, it's been a tough weekend, but that is what set me up for failure on Sunday. Is I was like, I guess I knew where I was going. I knew it was going to be a shallow lake, but in my mind, I was like, yeah, we just have to find like the deeper part and see where the fish are setting up and see if there's structure or weed beds. And we got to this lake and we had never been there, right? And so that's the risk that you take. And there was no deeper spots, dare I say, right? There was structure all over, thrown kind of random, in my opinion, throughout this lake. Boulders and stuff, rock piles and stuff. But I felt like I kept trying to look for the deep part of the lake of like, where are those fish setting up? And the deepest part of that lake was 11 feet. And it is it's crystal clear. So it looks like it's 2 feet. You feel like there's no depth. I don't know. That's what threw me.
Yeah. I mean, it's well, I would say normally when the boat traffic kind of dies down, it is crystal clear, but there was a tinge. And so, here's kind of where my thought was. Like the whole day we're going around and everybody out there knows that I really like trolling panfish. Like that's one of my favorite things to do. And it's not because of that it's easy, which is a fabulous reason to do it, especially if you have kids. But I really like the fact that you can cover water, and it gives me time to think. I'm not constantly like trying to position the boat and like looking around for structure and like casting a rod. Like I can set my stuff down or hold on to it for a second. I can take a look at my tackle box. I can like look at the map and think a little bit and figure out like where I want to go and stuff. And so this was a really great opportunity for that. And the fact that you could see like the fish swimming around like in the whole entire lake was like kind of cool. Cause like, you couldn't see like tons of fish. I knew there was fish down there. We put the forward facing sonar down for like maybe 10 minutes just to see, but it really didn't do
It
anything.
just showed you the weeds like extra clear.
Well, and like it did show some fish that you couldn't really see with your naked eye because they're kind of camouflaged, right? It's just deep enough. But that water, being that it's crystal clear most of the time, but then on weekends there's a lot of boat traffic, it really does like dust up the water just a little bit. Like it wouldn't be noticeable to, us because we're not fish. We don't live in it. It's super clear. But to them, like that little bit of dusting up, I think really messes with their general like eating, like what they're eating. And so normally for me on a crystal clear lake, I'm not going to chartreuse. That's something I use at, in Minnesota and some of those prairie lakes where it's like super stained up water, the eutrophic lakes, lots of weeds, lots of algae and stuff. And that's where I go with that chartreuse or hot pink or those kind of colors. Those aren't colors I usually think of for clear water. I usually think of like silver or white, or, you can even fish a bright sunny day with black because, they're looking at shadows. They're looking at that silhouette of a fish above them that they're hitting. And so those are the colors I started with. No love, got no love on those colors. Put on chartreuse, albeit it's a color that I really like. I stumbled upon it when we were playing around with plastics, and it's a muted chartreuse, but it's still chartreuse, and that's what was getting hit. And I'm wondering if there was a combination of things going on in that lake with the weather being such a high pressure system. Anytime you're above 30 on the pressure scale, it's going to be tough bite anyways. But then you have the boat traffic on top of it, which it's a super clear, shallow lake, and it's getting muddied up, and they, maybe they just hunker down or swim around and they're not really eating all that much. And it's new to us, so not only are we trying to catch fish, but we're also trying not to hit giant boulders and things in this lake that's less than 12 feet deep. So, my thought, there's like, we could, like, it's a pretty popular lake. We can, so this this is Boulder Lake. Over by the 60.
It's the Langlade County Oneida one.
Yeah. So
there's two in the state.
There's a big Forest Service campground on it. There's multiple resorts. There's a big sandbar down the middle of it, and on either side it's the deepest part of the lake, right? And there's a lot, like quite a bit of weeds for it being so rocky and sandy. Quite a bit of weeds like in that general area. Every time I came off, like we made a turn around that bar and came off the edge of it, I get a hit. It was largemouth and smallmouth. Like we didn't catch any panfish. Still fun, but every time. And so once I kind of got that figured out, then I was trying to play with like, okay, if you come off of like that 3 foot edge and then come down to 5 feet, are they sitting there? Or is it 6 feet or 7? And work your way down and see where they are on that edge and then just do that. And we were just getting done, and then we kind of got sick of being on the lake. And so we went and tried some other things, explored a little bit.
I'll throw myself under the bus if that's a thing, because I did get a little bit, in this case, I did get a little bit sick of trolling because, I don't know why. I just was hoping to find panfish, and the bass were great, but we knew enough about the bass pattern that we could go back to it if we wanted. And so what I said is I was like, if this is going to be a bass bite, if there's going to be smallies in this lake, then what we should do is there was this bay in the lake that was full of boulders. And I imagine that there's times of the year that the fish are loaded in there, because you can't tell me that they don't. They have to live in there. But I suggested this time, I was like, let's go cast around those. And so we did. Josh picked up and he scooted over to that area. The other thing that I did, I guess, while the boat was scooting over there, is I had changed everything about what was on the end of my line. So I had tried all different colors and jig heads and yada yada, all the things. But in this case, what I put on is the most minnow-like thing that I can find. So what I mean is when we are first launching the boat, when we are first getting to the lake, first touching the water, I look to see what's at the boat launch because a lot of times it's nothing. But sometimes you see bass, sometimes you see little bluegills, sometimes you see whatever. In this case, it was tons and tons of minnows. And so what I noticed is, first of all, that they were between like an inch and an inch and a half. So that's a great size bait to start targeting. If that's your match the hatch or whatever, if that's the forge in the lake. But I was also noticing that these minnows, they were shiners. They had this like silver flash, right? And so not all the time, but once in a while they would just get at the right angle and they would just flash so bright. And especially in the clear water, that was really, I was like, okay, so note to self, use silver and not gold or whatever, you know. So that's what I did as we were moving the boat over to these boulders, is I put on a little gray, what do they call those? It's actually a Northland bait, and it has the little spinner. It looks like a fish head. Anyways, it's like a little gray fish head, and it has that silver flash on it. I was like, this is perfect. I also had a paddle tail, and it's a minnow
prey bait.
Yeah, and so okay, so maybe it was too big, but I had been getting bites on big baits, so I did upsize. But I made it look exactly like those minnows, well, as much as I could anyways. And so we were out there, we were casting, and ultimately we caught nothing off these boulders, which was actually really shocking. And so again, I think that brought us kind of that point in the day where we were like, are we going to stay here all night, or are we going to I think we bailed out right at that point. But it was kind of two different tales this weekend of fishing, of bites, of everything. And so, you know, we love to come here and talk about patterns and all this stuff. And I feel like, I don't know, I'm more confused than ever. But what does that tell us, though, is that fish are in transition, right? And so maybe Sunday, part of that was like Labor Day. You know, fish are in transition from all different spots, from the cold, from the boats pushing them around. But on Saturday, we found that fish are in transition to a truer fall pattern. And at that point, they weren't set up. And that's why the bite wasn't amazing, as fish were trying to still figure out, like, where do we go? But I think we've had a week of, well, I don't know if I'd call it consistent temperatures, but consistently cool, or at least cooler than what we've been. And so I know at this point, water temperatures are going to be quite a bit lower than the last time we saw them.
Well, I was just out in the boat today doing some lake sampling, and the water was still 70 degrees.
What?
Yep.
Huh.
69.5 or 7 or something is what the sonar said. So here's the deal, is that we've still got to remember it's the first week of September. There's warm days coming up.
Yeah, but
we're not in full hoodie stuff, you know, we're not in full hoodie gear yet. Even though we all want it to be, right? We're all ready to start airing out our ice shacks and all that kind of stuff, and we still got almost 3 months before we got so no, but it does bring up a good point that that you will have to be checking when you go out, whether you're going out in the next couple days, over the weekend, or if you're lucky enough to fish during the week, you know, over the next few days stretch here, it has been a little bit cooler up here, at least in the northern half of Wisconsin, and you're going to have to check a little bit of that shallow stuff and a little bit of the deep stuff, and just you're gonna have to like see where each lake is at, because in these transitions, just like spring, fall, each lake is a different animal. You can go to one lake, and that's, I think, where we're going with our stories. We went to 3 different bodies of water. One, the river, we didn't really have too hard of a time catching fish. Hey, Joel. We didn't have too much of a hard time catching fish, besides the fact we were just scouting, right? So we weren't like narrowed down on a spot with fish. We just kind of were scooting around, looking at places, and then when it got a little darker, we got a few bites. So we stayed there, did a couple passes, caught some really nice fish. Second lake, we struggled, had a little bit of success, but found quite a few fish that made us want to come back. And then the third lake, we got our butts kicked. honestly. Like we caught, we caught a lot of fish. There was a lot of smallmouth, but there wasn't. When I say butt kicked, like, yeah, if you can say, yeah, I caught like 20 fish today. That's a good day. Except for our day is like 12 hours long, so that's a pretty poor time to fish ratio. If somebody's out there for only a couple of hours, right? Not everybody can just spend their whole weekend in the boat. But
we don't really have time to.
Well, we shouldn't.
Yeah, we do.
but no, so it's just follow. You're gonna just have to go test spots and don't give it like the whole day. Don't this is not the time to hunker down. This is the time to go test a spot. If you don't get any bites, go test a different spot and just make sure you're covering the whole spectrum. And once you like we were talking about, you had a really nice little pattern that you started to build up on our second lake that we went and fished. Once you get that first piece, set it down, look at it, and try and figure out what connects to it, right? So you can go and you put the next piece down.
Are you actually talking about puzzles, or are we still talking fishing?
I'm always talking about puzzles. Fishing's a puzzle. So, yeah, I think on Boulder Lake, the one thing that I really, when I was thinking back on it, because I like to reflect after we're done fishing, and not that I'm like amped to go back there right away, but I'm almost regretting that we didn't try something like a drop shot or something. It's not a super deep lake. There were, right off that bar, there was some nice weed edges, and we could have slowed it down a little bit and just tried along the bar. I just feel like there's a couple things that we could have pulled out of our hats that maybe would have been a little bit more successful, but maybe not. And so that's, I don't know. We'll never know. We'll never be back on that lake on that day because it's gone.
Oh my gosh, that sounds so dramatic. But I think that is one of the nice things about, I guess, trying new water is that sometimes it is a hit. You'll never really know, but there is always new water to check out. So whether we go there, whether we don't, whether we try other things, I mean, that is the option that we have. And I guess you never know unless we try. So if nothing else, I could say that I've been there, explored it, right? And when we go back, then I'll have, I don't know, maybe a few more ways to start. I don't know. Either way, it won't be Labor Day weekend. I'll tell you that. Right. So I guess with that, I was going to say, what does our weekend coming up look like? And I don't even know if we've really thought that far.
Well, I think our weekend coming up looks like you have to work a half a day on Saturday. Because all you people out there getting your bear trophies are taking up my precious fishing time with my wife, just so you know. So
what does that mean for people who don't know? I work at Fitate Taxidermy, so right in Anago. I think a lot of people, that was convenient. Yeah. I think Peter was checking in earlier. He sure can catch crappies, that's for sure. But I run into all kinds of people there, and right now it is bear season. So all these people that are getting bears, and we're talking about all kinds of things. So having a lot of people coming in, see us, and a few fish go out the door, I think, this weekend.
Yep.
But after that, I think we're going to be hitting the water, and that's always well, okay. And, I guess this is a funny thing that I didn't realize about myself, and maybe this is not that important, but we talked about Labor Day. It's a good idea if you can sort the lakes by no motor or crappy launches, gravel versus everyone goes to the big lakes where you can fly around with a nice launch and tons of parking. I mean,
I hate those ones.
Well, and sometimes the tons of parking is great. Sometimes that does work out, but usually I am not that lucky, right? But the other thing is, we're talking about working on Saturday. And so sometimes I plan my lakes based on what's close to home, right? Like what can I get to fast if I only have a half day versus a full day of fishing? So I always think that's kind of a fun challenge in itself. And, sometimes it does put us in a body of water that we haven't been to before. And sometimes it puts us right in our home, sweet home lake, right? But I guess I haven't thought that far ahead to know. I want to find deeper fish this weekend.
we've come to a dichotomy in our fishing relationship where Emily is now a deep sea jigger, where I still like to troll. And this is not the time of year for trolling, but not at least for catfish.
Yeah, so ask me again in the summer. Right on your same page.
Yeah, no. But no, I think while Emily is out handing out awesome fish trophies and animal mounts, I am going to be at home because I ordered us some gatorback bunks. So I'm going to be putting new bunks on my trailer. If you guys remember that last year, August, we put on a new bunk and new carpet, and now that new carpet is ripped up because it's junky. And so I got sick of it, and we chatted. We had gatorback bunks on our podcast a few episodes ago. That got the conversation rolling, asking us like, "Oh, what do you have on your boat?" And then we went into our big story. And
I was like, the bunks come with carpet. Why would you not just go with carpet? Like they got to start with the right thing, don't they? Well, it's a good episode. He talked me into it.
Yeah. So we chatted, and they talked us into it. And yeah, so I think I'll be working on that and getting at least the bunks ready for installation. We're gonna have to do that at a launch. We will be taking our old bunks with us because you should never leave bunks at a launch. Who was telling us that there was bunks left at a launch? Was that same episode?
You know what? Yeah, I think it was some of the comments that came in.
That's crazy. But yeah, we'll take our old bunks with us and start a fire with them or something after we take the carpet off of them. And hopefully we got some really nice, smooth. You're going to have to adjust your driving on the trailer thing because it's going to go whoop.
Well, we're going to find out. But maybe we'll do some videos and stuff and show it to everybody else at home too.
Yeah.
Because I was so nervous. And I guess that's the thing is it's like easy to try new tackle, try new line. What's the worst thing that can happen is you like lose one fish, you hope it's not like your trophy. But I mean, I think that's the thing is like I'm willing to take that risk. Oh, try a new rod, fine, but when it comes to things like your boat, I can't just try a new boat, right? And so that's the thing is I've just always been so nervous about like taking care of it the right way and at least as much as we can because we beat it up a lot. I mean, we're in it constantly. And so I just was so nervous, but I think he talked me into it. I think I'm excited now.
Well, and I think this goes a long way in helping back up what we like to preach, and that is keeping your boat clean and free of invasive species. And this really does help because it is a rubber of a sorts, and it doesn't harbor the stuff like the zebra mussels and the spiny water fleas and those little pieces of milfoil or what have you that can get stuck in the carpet. And Emily and I are famously weekend warriors when it comes to fishing, so our boat does dry out at least 5 days between our major water bodies. And if we go to a water body that we know has a major infection of something, we try and do that water body twice that weekend and try not to move stuff around. But this will help a lot with that. So we're pretty excited for that. I think also coming up next week, we're going to be talking a little bit more about some more boat things. We have Piranha Propellers. So if you guys have never heard of Piranha Propellers, this is a small company that I just happened upon. I can't remember if somebody sent me a reel or something, and I was like, whoa, that's pretty neat. So I looked it up. I contacted them. They're super nice, and they're going to be on our podcast next week. So we're going to talk about that. They're a composite propeller. And so you can, when your propeller breaks, it's designed to break off only like half of it. So then you can at least have.
We'll let them explain it.
So you can at least have some propeller left to get back to shore. But then you can like replace that fin individually, like you're not replacing a whole prop. So it's interesting. Take take a look at them and join us next week for our chat with them, because I'm pretty excited about that. I love seeing these new small companies come up with innovative products, and that's what we're here to do, is talk about fishing and bring those small companies to you guys. Other than that, keep an eye out, because in the next month or two, maybe 2 months, next month or two, we're gonna be starting up our series with the vendors for the Wisconsin Ice Fishing Expo. We did a lot of vendors last year. I think we're trimming it down just a tad, just because I think it got a little bit long for the vendors and for us, and possibly you guys, although you guys really liked asking a whole bunch of questions about all the stuff at the expo. So yeah, we're gonna have some more vendors on from the expo talking about what they're gonna have there. I really can't wait for the expo. It's can't come soon enough, because not only does the expo mean ice fishing stuff and get to talk to all you guys in person, but it also means ice fishing. It's like right after that is when hardcore ice fishing starts. So I'm super stoked for that.
I hate that season. Yeah,
speechless.
Oh my gosh. No, but this is, I guess, starting to be the time where we're gonna be taking out our ice equipment and clearing things out. And if we get too far into fall, it just gets so cold and sometimes rainy. And so sometimes I'd rather air out my gear now, although then it's sitting around. I guess it's sitting around anyway. But I know when we're going to the lakes, like we're saying, we're taking notes of where fish are sitting, where they're headed to, where deep structure is, where weeds are starting to die off and not, because as we progress way into fall, those things become important, especially as we go into winter. So I'm sure we'll talk a whole bunch more about that as the time gets closer. But I guess for now, that's where we're at.
Yeah, that's where we're at. I know that I am going to start pulling out some of those sweet mini micro jerk baits from Eurotackle. I'm going to start throwing some of those, because when the water starts to cool down a little bit, but then the sun comes up and heats the top layer water, then you can start getting some of those really nice top water bites on panfish. And they're like this big. They're cute.
It depends on how far you hold it in the camera. That's the problem.
Like,
yeah. Oh my god.
No, they're like 2 inches, and I'm super excited to throw some of that. This is the jerk bait season. I love that season. You get to throw 3-inch jerk minnows. That's my favorite on on those core tackle jigs. Yeah, this is fishing is just getting good, so I can't wait.
Oh my gosh, it is a season to, I guess, upsize baits and all those different things, and fish are going to be biting. So I definitely look forward to that. And I guess each weekend that we go out, we will continue to, bring reports on each week's episode and let you know what water temps are and all that. But if you guys have reports along the way, let us know, because we love to see those trends across the area. And certainly this is the time of season where up north it's going to be colder, and down south they're not going to be where we're at yet, right? But to see that trend go through can sometimes help you decide where you're going to go fishing, plan your time. And so we are looking forward to talking about that. I don't think there's anything else really that we have here tonight. So I guess that's it. We came to just mostly check in with you guys. Like you said, there's lots of good stuff coming next week. And I guess that's that. So yeah, thanks for joining us.
And if you guys have any trophy fish or trophy animals, you know who to call.
Come visit me this weekend. Yeah.
Come visit Emily up here in Anningham.
And otherwise, we hope to see you out on the water, or see you on next week's edition of The Night Bite.
Night, everybody.